What's up, everybody? Welcome to Transition Tuesdays for this Tuesday, March the 8th, 2022. I am your host, Russ Williams. I'm so glad you could be here today. Ladies and gentlemen, Transition Army, I know you could have been anywhere in this world today. But you decided to be here with me, and I appreciate that. And more importantly, I appreciate you. So welcome to Transition Tuesdays, my friends, on this happy International Women's Day. So shout out to all the women out there. Hey, we have an action-packed show. I got a special guest on your screen right here today. We're gonna have some great conversation. But before I do that, I always like to state my intentions for the show. And my intention is to give you the opportunity to laugh, smile, think, and engage in honest conversations about your life's transitions. So that's what we do here on Transition Tuesdays. And speaking of honest conversations, I'm going to read down the bio of my special guest here, okay? So ladies and gentlemen, my special guest began his career in business working at a Fortune 500 company in operations before earning his MBA from the Carlson School of Management. After graduating in 2013, my guest went on to work for a number of Fortune 500 companies in the project management and consulting capacities. And in 2017, this young man began Guaranteed America, specialized in advocacy, coalition building, management, and strategic campaign consulting and support. And this is a great thing I'm about to read to you guys, ladies and gentlemen. In 2020, this young man served as the Minnesota Regional Director for the Biden campaign. Now, finally, with this young man's bio, my special guest currently lives in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, with his wife and 3 children, and is now running for mayor of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, Minnesota 6. So, ladies and gentlemen, Transition Army, please help me welcome Mr. Hollies Winston back to Transition Tuesdays. Hollies, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, can you hear me?
No problem. Yeah, I can hear you. Yep, the audio's coming out a little fuzzy.
Great.
Again,
yeah,
I can see that's okay. That's okay. We'll get it. How you doing, Hollies, today, man?
Sorry, man. I don't know. Good.
Good. All right.
Can you hear
me? I can hear you. Yep, I can hear you loud and clear, which is good. Can you hear me though? Okay.
I can.
We might be. Okay, good. We might be in a slight delay, so I apologize for that. Hey, so Hollies, I was talking to you earlier, just start out with a couple of questions, and I appreciate having you for, a couple of minutes today. I really appreciate it because I know you're a busy guy on a quest here. So I know we talked about, you talked about how the mayoral election in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota is like a microcosm of what's going on in the United States here today. So can you explain to the viewers, why is this the case?
Well, Brooklyn Park is, one of the most diverse cities in Minnesota, right? And Minnesota is not really known for its diversity, but it's increasingly becoming diverse. Our city is 61% people of color. About 30% of that is African heritage, so a mixture of West African, some East African, and then African American. And then we have the Hmong community, Hmong Lao community, which is, Asian community. They are maybe 20% or 15 to 20%. Then we have Latino, 5 to 8%, and then, mixed race, and that's not just Brooklyn Park. The country is increasingly moving in a direction where there's more and more diversity, whether it's through immigration or whether that's the folks who are just having the babies, right? That's kind of the story of America, is that whether it's that first wave of, Italian, Irish immigrants, or Black folks, with the great migration moving up north from the South, there's always this type of, salad, mixed, salad, I guess. Not a melting pot, right? But more of a mixed salad of folks kind of moving around and populating the country. So that's kind of where, and we deal with a lot of the issues the country deals with, right? So you have disparities between different communities. You have some areas that are very wealthy, some areas that are middle class, some that are, folks that are working class, or some folks that are really struggling. So we have all that diversity, whether it's economic, whether it's religious, whether it's ethnic, we have all that in Brooklyn Park, and the country is increasingly moving that direction.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, so Hollis, man, talk to the viewers for my Transition Army. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your family, which is a unique dynamic, especially in politics. And I hear that your daughter has gotten accepted to NYU, so she might be making a trip here to New York City. But talk to us a little about yourself and your family.
Yeah, so I've been with my wife about 19 years, 18, 19 years now. And we have a 6-year-old, 16-year-old, and a 17-year-old. And the 17-year-old just got accepted maybe a month or two ago to New York University. She got a bunch of scholarships there, so we're extremely proud of her, as we are all of our children. And she's excited to go there. She'll be in DC for 1 year. She's actually going to be in politics. She wants to become a lawyer. So, we're a pretty tight knit family. Everybody's been pretty involved in this whole political process. But all of our children, very unique, love them, all of them, super bright, good hearts. And then, of course, my wife is my rock. She's been there throughout the whole, this whole process with me, even as she holds down, her own job and everything she does, and then supporting the family as well. So that's the family. Just like everybody else, my parents and grandparents and all that stuff are extremely important. Part of that African-American Great Migration from the South to the North. So that's my background, and I've always been very proud of that.
Absolutely. Hey, Hollis, what got you into politics? Was that ingrained in you, from your parents, grandparents? How'd you get involved in politics?
Yeah, I don't know if it was ingrained. I mean, I'm blessed in that my father was a lawyer, and my mother was, she was corporate. And so we would talk about these issues, and my dad would kind of press me, kind of as lawyers press people. He'd ask me questions, and we would debate from a young age. But I was always interested in what was going on in the world. Since I was a kid. I mean, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, those were my initial heroes before anybody else. Those are the folks I was taught about first. And so if that's who you're taught about first, you're going to want to have some type of impact on the world for your community and just to make it a better place. So for me, I've always gone in that direction. I went to Northwestern University in Illinois, and my daughter said, no, I don't want the alumni advantage. I want to go to New York University. But when I went to Northwestern, I got my major was political science. So I learned about that at in college. But right after college, for some reason, I wanted to learn business. So I kind of took a detour and got into business, and initially had my own business, then went into Fortune 500 world, got an MBA. And now I'm kind of, the last 6-7 years, I'm kind of coming back around to politics, but with that business background too.
Okay, man, that's it. Yeah, that's interesting too. How everything is reciprocal, how everything goes back around. Yeah, that's a good stuff. Hey, so Hollis, man, on your journey, I would imagine it was really hard falling 2 votes shy in the last election, only 2 votes shy. So, but to give you credit there, Hollis, you've shown a great deal of resilience, in your part to run again, man. So, can you speak to us about this and what motivates you to run again? What motivates you to run?
Well, I was, my adversaries would say different, probably because they project. But I never got into politics for myself. I'm not in it for the title, because I'm already successful in the business world, right? And I'm not really never been motivated by a bunch of money or title. Really, it's about the community. So we have areas in Brooklyn Park that are really struggling, right? We got projects in Brooklyn Park, and the city is doing everything in their power to make them permanent projects, right? To turn it into a permanent housing project. They don't have the expertise, intelligence to know how to kind of fix it, right? So seeing that happen in my own city motivates me to keep running. But then, just the residents of Brooklyn Park, I think, are extremely hardworking, resilient, The best of them are kind-hearted. And so for me, when you lose by 2 votes, you owe it to the community and the people who supported you to run again. And here's the reality. It was a special election. Only 7,000 people. So it's a city of 86,000. Only 7,000 people voted. Usually in a mayoral election, 20 to 28,000 people voted, right? So it was about a fourth of the last turnout, and half of that vote came from one specific area. So to me, it's not really fair to the community to just stop and say, well, we're going to let 50% of one, we're going to let one area be 50% of the vote and they determine who the mayor is. I'm much more interested in saying, okay, when everyone votes and we have this battle of ideas, who wins? And I feel confident that we'll prevail. We'll come out of that and help get Brooklyn Park where it needs to be. But that's what motivates me is when everyone has a voice, what does it sound like? And then how do we address these issues that are beginning to plague our city? And, how do I put it? Leadership abhors a vacuum, and we have a huge vacuum in Brooklyn Park in terms of leadership, right? And so stepping into that role so that we can move in a different direction is extremely important to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt about it. Hey, so Hollis, this is a 3-part question. Like, what are some takeaways that you can take from last election? Like, what have you learned? And what do you think you need to win for this time, for this election? So maybe start with some takeaways.
Not all of, I can't give all of it. Okay. So I can't give it all away. What I will say is that because some of it's strategic, you and I can talk offline about it, but some of it's very strategic in terms of takeaways. I will say though, the more one takeaway we have is the more we get everyone involved in the community, the better chance we have of winning. Because the ideas that we bring to the table, the expectations, the energy, where folks want to see Brooklyn Park go, the demographics that we're speaking to, the issues that we want to grapple with and address. Most of the community is on board with us. We just have to get the word out that, hey, we're running. We need you to show up and vote. So for us, it's very much, how do we get as many folks out to vote as possible? I think that's our main takeaway. And then we'll do the work of engaging people who maybe don't see eye to eye with us in the beginning. Or the reality is some of the attacks that, our adversaries and it was really low stuff, right? It was, he's associated with this African-American, so he's going to be this way or he's going to be that way, right? And then, they were making it so it'd be the same as if you and I were in the same room and they were like, well, Hollis, you look like Russ, so whatever Russ does, you can play basketball like Russ. No, I can't. I can't play basketball like Russ. I couldn't play college ball. You know what I mean? But they were making those assumptions, but in a negative fashion, right? So I think for us, we need to kind of combat that and say, hey, they can use that ugliness because they're moving from fear, but we want you to know what we really stand for. Hollis is a family man, been a family man for quite some time, been with the same woman for quite some time, right? And you need to understand that when he moves, he's moving from a place of what's best for the community, what's best for my wife, for my children, right? And I'm looking at people through that lens. So helping people to understand better that whatever fears people are painting of me, that's their fears. Don't put that on me because someone else is terrified of change, right? That's the thing that we realize we have to combat, but we also just have to continue to have thick skin and realize some people don't have a moral compass, right? Yeah. Some people will run for office and they lack a moral compass, and their followers lack a moral compass, and they're not even aware that they lack a moral compass. And so we have to help our troops to understand, keep fighting the fight. You can't control their moral compass, right? But we can have the discussions with the people that they're trying to talk to.
Understood. It's funny, on this International Women's Day, the great Michelle Obama, what does she say? As they go low, we go high. So I can see the mudslinging and all that, but I get involved in that too. So that's the great lesson to be learned as well. No doubt about it. Hey, so ladies and gentlemen, if you just joined us, we're joined by Mr. Hollies Winston, who is running for Brooklyn Park, Minnesota mayor. Okay, so he's been kind to join us here today. So Winston, man, how can the Transition Army help in this process for you? Like, what can we do? What can we provide? Or what assistance can we provide on this platform? So it's all yours. What do you think you might need?
Well, I mean, the reality is we're always going to need volunteers, right? But I know that's difficult for some folks because you're out of state. But we also need donations, so people can visit HOLLIESWINSTON.org. Again, HOLLIESWINSTON.org. But also, I want to continue having these conversations with you about getting really more into I know this is the first of others we'll have, but I also want folks to begin to realize that, BIPOC community, Black communities, people of color communities, right? Black immigrant people of color, however you want to put it, they don't just live in big cities, right? Often we're in these surrounding suburbs, and we're dealing with the same issues that we're dealing with in the city. We just don't have the same unity in the suburbs because people move out to the suburbs and they're just not as plugged in, right? And so helping me to have a conversation with people to say what goes in Brooklyn Park is what's going to eventually happen out where you live, right? Because
That's
a lot right. of, if we're talking about the African American community, which, you and I are both a part of, right? We say, okay, you grow up in New York. Let's say you're from Brooklyn, New York, right? And you make good. You go to a certain college. You work your way up, and you say, okay, now I'm playing around with a little dough. I want a little more peace and quiet. I'm moving out to one of the suburbs, right?
Right.
Those suburbs that we move to generally tend to be a little bit more diverse, but we're still dealing with the same issues in terms of the school system, in terms of dealing with, improving our relationship with the police, making sure our community stays safe. So that's all at the local issue. President Biden isn't going to be able to necessarily do anything about that besides saying, well, let's get him another check. Your state government can't really do much about that besides saying, well, let's get them another check. We can put some laws on the books, but how they follow those laws is going to be at the local level. And so helping us to have this conversation with people that federal is important. These elections are coming up are important at the federal level, but make sure you understand everyone who's running at your local level, because you should be able to call up your city councilor and say, we had this issue on my block. How are you going to help me fix it? How are you going to walk me through how to fix it? As opposed to people saying, well, I don't know what's going on. They get railroaded and then they just give up. And then their children look and they say, well, I don't have any power. I'm just going to go to corporate America and just make a bunch of money. And then I'm going to try to move further away from the issue. You can't do that. The issues always follow you, right? Because we have these bigger issues in America we're dealing with. So helping me to have those conversations are important, because I think if people understand that, they're much more likely to, okay, say, well, let's write a check. We'll write a check for that. We'll help them, support them with that.
No, absolutely, yeah. And yeah, on the federal level, well, like you have to meet people where they are, like you said, and like you make a great point, Hollis, is because if there's problems in an urban city in one city, it's probably going to be problems in urban city in many cities. So everything is kind of connected. So you as that person, I feel, and I've told you this before, I feel that you have the answers for people on that local level to be like, hey, look, I'm having problems, I haven't made the problems. Like, who can I reach out to help me with this? And you're that person. You're built for this. So, I'm glad to try to assist you on this. Hey, Hollis, what are some goals do you have for funding? Because I know funding and fundraising might be difficult task, I would imagine, in terms of, for elections. So do you have any goals for fundings that you would like to do? Or
You said funding or fun things?
Funding. Yeah, funding.
Oh, funding.
Yep.
So I would say
actually funding could lead to fun
I'll go back
too.
Right. So I'll go back to your first question first, then I'll get to the funding.
Sure.
Regarding your first question, maybe this will help people understand better kind of where we're getting at with the local, right? So here's a good example. In my city of Brooklyn Park, I think there's 3 or 4 school districts. One of the school districts happens to be partially in Brooklyn Park, maybe a little bit in this other city called Osseo. So my city is Brooklyn Park. And then there's another city, Maple Grove. Now, for the longest time, people in Maple Grove kind of ran the school board. So when you go to the cities and when you go to the schools in Maple Grove versus to the high school in Brooklyn Park, the high school in Maple Grove had better programming and it was just much nicer, right? And if you looked at Maple Grove, they don't look anything like Brooklyn Park, right? So when we talk about local politics, it gets to that level of getting involved so that the schools that your child goes to, right, are some of the best schools possible. And if you get involved with that stuff, you can make it a good school for your child or for future generations. It gets to that local of a level. It's not always out of your hands. It's not always at the state or the federal level. You and your friends can get involved and you can say, no, we would like this type of history taught at our school. My family moved from, I can't remember, where's your family from originally, Russ? Down south? Or are they from always from New York?
Yeah, no, North Carolina, actually. Yep, North Carolina.
Yeah. So it gets to a point where you could say, that's real cool what you guys are teaching about the founding fathers and da. That's important. But my family moved from North Carolina up to New York, and they did it because of this reason. And I want other kids who come from the same background to understand why this happened and the history behind that. That's not making history up. That's actually history. It helps kids understand how the world works. It helps them understand why New York looks the way it looks, right? And you can do that for a lot of different communities. But unless you have the votes to fight for something like that, your kids may think until, some kids think, well, ain't we always been from New York? No, you haven't. That's why your family talks a certain way. That's why you have certain slang, because that comes from down south. And some of those values come from down south. And you guys were moving up here for a better opportunity. So honor that and take advantage of it. So shifting over to the funding piece, though, we're looking to, and this may not sound like much because everything in New York is more expensive, but we're trying to raise 100 to 115K, right? The max that any individual can give is $600. If they're married or in a family, they can give $1,200 or $600 each, right? So we're trying to get to 100 to 115K, and I think the more people that give, the closer we get to that. And if we're finding we're getting support from all over, we're gonna teach people some of the stuff that we're doing in Brooklyn Park so that they can implement this where they live as well. Because we're noticing that in other states, especially in the Midwest, where a lot of people kind of look at that as, oh, I just fly over that, right? But in Wisconsin, in Iowa, in certain parts of Michigan and other areas, right? Even though Michigan's a little bit more East Coast, they're dealing with the same issues of, we've got these suburbs that are very diverse, but they don't have the representation to represent everybody. And that's not just the diversity, right? That's also white folks, right? We got to make that clear that they don't have the leadership that's going to represent everyone, right? So that we all grow together and we all do better. So this is not just a Minnesota thing or a Brooklyn Park thing. This is happening across the country and outside of the Midwest. So I think it's important that folks support us, because if you know me, I turn around and I say, okay, well, how do I teach other people how to do what we're doing so that America can grow into the promise that's always been there, that we've always looked to.
Right. No, absolutely, absolutely. No, that's a great point, man. There's the promise that we're looking for that was promised to us, and I think you can deliver the goods on that, Hollis. Hey, Hollis, I got 2 more questions for you. This one, I just was thinking about this. If you had an opportunity, because you will have an opportunity, but if you had an opportunity to speak to those 2 voters, let's make it 3 voters, because that third vote would have got you over the top. So if you have an opportunity to speak to those voters right now, what would you say to them to change their minds, to vote for you in this election?
Well, I would tell them, don't sit this one out like you did the last time. Because if you look at what's happening since that last election, and in less than a year, we have a city councilor who's been censored, right? So basically, that means another city councilor on Brooklyn Park has, I'm not a city councilor, but one of the city councilors on Brooklyn Park has been censored. They live in a central district. What that means when they got censored is they've been taken off the committees. They can't directly talk to other employees. The problem with that is that when you censor a city councilor in that way, they can't successfully represent their part of the city the way they should be able to represent it. So now instead of having 2 city councilors for the central district, they've got 1, and the other districts have 2, right? Or if you count the mayor, some of them have 3. So they've just got 1, right? And so you have to kind of say, well, if in a year we've gotten to a point where we had to censor someone, where very little has gotten done, where we have where certain areas of the city, crime has just jumped through the roof, right? And it's insane because you're saying, okay, well, this is a city that had, some of the houses are $600,000, $700,000, right? Or maybe $600K. And that's for, again, this is Minnesota dollars. So $600,000 house is probably 1.5 or 2 million where you guys are at, right? So we have houses that have that level of value, but we've got crime jumping off the radar because we have leadership that has no idea how to handle it. They have no idea they got to get ahead of it. And they're throwing contracts at, for lack of a better word, poverty pimps who say, I can fix it. And these poverty pimps are basically saying, well, your problem is single Black women, right? These are people who look like us, right? And they're saying, well, your problem is single Black women and their children, right? The problem with that is that when you demonize someone and you don't have a real solution, right, the crime continues. So I would tell people, if you want the crime to go down, if you want the jobs to go up, if you want to feel safer, if you want a city council that you're proud of, that's not getting censored, that is not divided, that's not the laughing stock of the rest of the state, right? You have to get out and vote for what you want. You can't sit by the sidelines and say, well, I think he's got it. I think he's got it. You have to get involved, finish that vote, and then you get the city council that you deserve. That makes sense, right? We didn't get that this time. And, I have the mayor that was before the current mayor, we have political differences, right? We don't see eye to eye on everything. I have a ton of respect in terms of how they conducted the city council, how they handled issues, and how they kept some modicum of decorum and respect, right, in the city council. That has devolved so quickly, right? It tells you that leadership matters, right? And if you want the right leadership in there, you have to vote.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like you said, every vote matters. I mean, a matter of 2 votes, every vote matters. And again, but just think of it like this, ladies and gentlemen, and for yourself, Hollis, people have died for the right to vote. We're seeing how they're trying to take away the right to vote now. So it is an urgent matter. You can't sit this out. You can make a difference. Your vote makes a difference. So you have to sit that out. Now, what well said there, Hollis, well said. Hey, Hollis, hang on for a little bit. I'm just going to make a couple announcements, and I'm going to have you off in a sec. But, hey, ladies and gentlemen, if we were able to make you laugh, smile, and think during this broadcast, my good friends, you have accomplished something major today. So celebrate your victory. We're going to be celebrating Hollis's victory in a few too. We're going to be celebrating that, but celebrate your victory. So, ladies and gentlemen, Transition Army, I want to thank you all for watching Transition Tuesdays each and every Tuesday. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. Also, you can catch this episode and past episodes on our YouTube channel, Transition Tuesday. So I invite everybody to go on there, like and subscribe. You can also follow me if you haven't done so already on IG, Instagram, on Russ Will Transitions. That's Russ Will Transitions with an S. And I want to thank my guest, Mr. Hollies Winston, for joining us here today. Hey, Hollis, man, can you give us your your social media tags and give us the website of your campaign as well too? Give us all that information.
So I think I'm not great with Twitter, man. But okay. I think it's Hollis. It's hashtag Hollies Winston or something like that. Okay. But I know on Facebook it's Hollies Winston for Brooklyn Park Mayor, And my name is spelled Hollies. So Hollis Winston for Brooklyn Park Mayor. And then my website is HOLLIESWINSTON.org. Again, HOLLIESWINSTON.org.
Perfect, perfect. Nah, absolutely. Great, great. And guests like my man, my good friend Hollis, okay, is going to receive a candy gift pack, compliments of our sponsor, Sweet Candy Cafe. So with Sweet Candy Cafe is the home of Southern Sweetness, located in downtown Lumberton, North Carolina. So Hollis, I'm going to get your information. I'm going to send you that. And also, so ladies and gentlemen, before we go today, make sure you go to sweetcandycafe.com and you can order your confectionery goodies there, okay? And they ship everywhere, all right? So that's at sweetcandycafe.com. So ladies and gentlemen, Transition Army, as we say in parting, happy transitioning, and we'll speak to you soon. Take care, everybody. God bless. Hollis, thank you so much. We're going to bring this home. We're going to bring this home. I know we are, Hollis. You're welcome, man. You're welcome, man. Thank you so much,
I appreciate
guys.
this, man. Thanks for taking the time.
No
right,
problem, no problem. And Hollis, we're going to have you back, too, when you win. We're going to have you back. Thanks, Hollis.
Yes, okay. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Okay. Take care, everybody.